Now, welcome everybody. We are 3 days out. We are 3 days out until Czechia, Ireland. Thursday, the Fortuna Arena. Thousands of Irish fans have decamped to Prague. Most of them have no tickets. They might find a way. And so, well, it's Denmark or North Macedonia Tuesday. So much to talk about. Lots going on. Our football coverage, as ever, sponsored by Sky Sports. With Sky Sports and Sports Extra, you can watch every live Premier League match this season. That's every live Premier League match across Sky Sports, Premier Sports and TNT. Get Sky Sports and Sports Extra on Sky, or you can stream them with Now. You know it's a big week because we've brought in the two big dogs, Damien Delaney and Gary Breen. Two of you in one episode. Last time this happened, Tony Adams was here. He's not joining us today.
Tony, that was a great evening, to be fair. For me as an Arsenal fan, but even everyone listening to his stories were brilliant.
Yeah.
He put Damien in his place for his
story. Yeah, I didn't enjoy it as much as you guys did. I got sat down early in the evening.
Oh, come on, janitor. It wasn't that bad.
Janitor, yeah.
It was such an alpha move out the gate. As memory serves, Damien said, all right, mate, I've just met you.
Yeah.
Not much you can say to that, Joe. You got
well, just a little reminder. We know why we're here.
Drilled in around the back, Scales with the header in! Troy Parrots lift off at the Aviva Stadium. That is a massive, massive goal. Troy Parrott shifts it, gets his shot away! Troy Parrott on the double! And talk about the cat amongst the pigeons. This is dreamland for Ireland. We were hoping they might see it through to half-time 1-0. It is 2-0 and Troy Parrott strikes again.
Parrott scores, it's 1-1. Troy Parrott with his third goal in 2 games. And the Irish supporters behind that goal, absolutely delirious. Some Irish pressure. Troy Parrott, they could be in here. Is that 2-2? The flag stays down. It's 2-2. The inspiration has come from Troy Parrott. 2 goals again. And now, let's see what this Hungary team are made of. It's all on this from convene. Scales is up after it. Scales wins the header. The chance! Yeah! Oh, there's the goal! There's the goal! That's Troy Parrott. That is unbelievable. He scored a hat-trick. And right at the death, Ireland have done it. I've never seen anything like it.
When you hear it like that, Gary, it's absolutely insane that this has happened.
It's amazing. Those kind of 4 or 5 days and what Troy achieved were just incredible. It's up there with any iconic Irish moment, be it Ray Houghton's goals and stuff. It's remarkable. Now, on the back of that, the hope now is that it's enough, or it's been enough to go the full distance and actually get to a World Cup. Because if you look at what this, if the lads do it and they're in such a good position to actually do this now, it will effectively be, Joe, 5 wins on the spin, where they cannot drop a point, and they are that close to achieving it now. Now, with that, obviously, the attitude changes from absolutely nothing to lose to now there is something to lose, because it feels tangible. It feels that America, bearing in mind that we're in late March now, is so close. It literally is within touching distance, and that will be fascinating and crucial for me in terms of how the lads cope with that type of pressure.
Yeah, that's a great point. I never really thought of that. Against Portugal, there was a degree of nothing to lose, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, listen, what they did is incredible. And I always remember this kind of Gordon Strachan saying to us when we were players, and that, that when you're behind, and there's nothing to you, it's like, and this is Damien's analogy as well, you're on a golf course and your first nine's dreadful, that you then relax. And then that back nine seems to be really good. They've got to be really good from the beginning now. And what is so unique about this playoff is effectively you normally go up against, in the playoff, the team twice. So it's home and away. But there's nothing like that now. They have to win both games. And if I look back on my playoff experience, against Turkey, we didn't lose and we went out. And against Iran, we lost and we went through. There's none of that in terms of aggregate scores now. It's all about winning those games.
Yeah, I did have a slightly comforting thought, Damien, on the... They have to win 5 in a row. Are they really going to win 5 in a row? We can also draw the next 2 and rely on Caoimhín Kelleher's insane record in penalty shootouts, whereby I think the Premier League average for penalties saved is 16%, And this guy has saved 8 of his last 17, including from Mbappe, Ronaldo, Bruno Fernandes, and a few others. So, listen, I don't really like the thought of penalties and the enormity of the pressure that would be on everyone if it went to penalties. But that's not the worst thought. That draws aren't fatal.
Yeah, I think penalties are a possibility. Like you said, statistically speaking, the chances of us winning 5 games in a row, I think we haven't done it for 30 years. I think it's been a long, long time. So, like statistically speaking, it's going to be difficult. So I think penalties could play a part. And hopefully, with the goalkeeper we have and the mood that's around the nation at the minute, hopefully that can carry us through. But I'm thoroughly looking forward to it. I woke up this morning and thought it's International Week, and I like more than anything, I pray we come through the Czechia game. Because it would be pandemonium leading up to Tuesday, Denmark at the Aviva. I meet people in the shops and stuff, and they're buying tickets for the Tuesday night game, and they don't care. They're like, we hope it's Denmark. Don't really want to go to North Macedonia, but you can just feel it. People are mentioning it to me. Just general chit chat around the country, around the shops. For me, you can just feel it. It just feels like one of those weeks where the country was going to come to a standstill.
On the penalty,
isn't it amazing how we've gone? And this is, I'm embarrassed to say it, but it got to a stage, even though we're great Irish fans, all of us, but when the Ireland games were coming around, we were like, oh no, it's another Ireland game. That's how it felt over the last few years, because the lads were just putting in such a shift, but nothing was going right for them. And now, all of a sudden, now it is, oh yes, the Ireland games here. And finally, because it's felt like an age since that win against Hungary that this game's come around.
Yeah, it's amazing the difference. That was so true. People were dreading international weeks. It had got to that point for sure. Hal Grimson, by the way, just to round off the penalties point, said...
Yeah, I hope you were going to say this.
We've a session Monday, session Tuesday, travel day Wednesday, that's the day before the game. Not going to practice penalties. There's too many other important things to work on. Do you have any great problem with that, fellas, or no?
No, I don't mind it. I didn't understand why he felt he had to speak to Stephen Kenny about penalties. I didn't understand that. I think that's just Jaime kind of like PR going into overdrive or whatever. But in terms of penalties, and of course, my biggest penalty experience is against Spain. And I agree. I don't know if Damo's the same. I think you can practice as much as you want, but you can't replicate the moment. You can't replicate the pressure. And I remember when it went to penalties that time, and now bearing in mind, Ian Hart, who was brilliant at penalties, had missed one in the game. We invariably ended up then missing 3 in a penalty shootout. But when they were deciding the pens, I remember this vividly now, where Kenny Cunningham put his name forward and said, I want to take the pen. And I literally put my arm across and said, no, Ken, you're not taking one. Like, we've got better penalty players. You laugh there, but
who the hell do you think you are?
Yeah, I know, but I'm thinking...
No, I'm laughing at Kenny. I could picture Kenny's reaction.
Because we've got better ones. The lads were just putting it in top corners all the time, blah, blah, blah. No problem. And I always regret that. And from that moment on, I said to myself, I do not care. If ever there's a big penalty shot, I'm taking one. And I did. I took one in the playoffs against Damo's old team, Palace. Not because but I just felt, no, I'd rather... You've got to take control of the situation. And I think that it's whoever feels at the time that they're able to do it. I don't think you can actually prepare yourself for them because of the pressure attached.
And did Kenny Cunningham take one then or no? I can't remember.
Oh, no, he didn't.
Sorry, you killed him.
Because we had other people who were brilliant at it. But he was just in that frame of mind where he was just so like, no, I'll take the penalty. And you need those guys.
Yeah.
They're the ones who effectively you think like it's whoever feels confident enough to take one.
And did the good penalty takers score theirs?
No, they missed. The penalty scorers... who missed? Matt Holland, who would always have scored, David Connolly, a brilliant finisher, and Kev, they missed. They're all really brilliant penalty takers, but they just missed. I don't know why. I'd still back them now today to take penalties, but for that on that occasion, I don't know what it is about penalties in terms of when we've seen it with incredibly gifted players throughout tournaments who've really struggled. I know England make a point of that they think they have practiced it over a course of maybe 2-3 seasons to get the mindset right, but I don't think there is enough time for those lads now, from now until the game on Thursday, to just let the lads who feel confident enough to take them.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because that's kind of an old school way of doing it, I think, Gary, now, isn't it? That whoever's in the mood, whoever's feeling it, I trust you. Whereas I think now that the sports science would be, well, no, look, technique is technique. And and I know in the example you're giving it backfired, but I don't know, I'd still probably go with your initial instinct, and we all love Kenny Cunningham to say, no, Kenny, you're not a penalty taker. You should just, it'll average out over time. The guys with better technique will likely score, so let's stick with them. Did you get a sense they weren't in the mood, the lads who were usually very proficient?
They were confident. We knew
They were, okay.
You knew the magnitude of it, but they were confident because they had belief in what they practiced all their careers.
Yeah. Where are you in it, Damien, versus the Kenny Cunningham? Do you know what? I just on the spot, I just fancy it versus your more regular penalty taker who maybe might not be, might be feeling the pressure a bit, but is more than happy to take one. Who are you sending up?
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's a lot. I've spoke to a lot of people that say there is a science to it, and there is a methodology that can be used. I'm not so sure. First of all, after a 120-minute game, you're not sure who's going to be on the pitch, so you can't really, plus, you don't know who's had a hard shift, who might have had a bang, who's not. On top of that, all week, guys can say, oh, I'm going to take a penalty. But when that moment comes, some guys might just think, no, actually, and you can sense it in their voice when they say, no, I'll take one, but you can see they're not sure. Whereas if it was me and Kenny steps forward, and we all know and love Kenny, and Kenny says, I'm taking one, I'd be kind of trying to go, Jesus, he's just the type of fella that would have that personality to step forward and do it. So it's who wants to do it, who really feels it. I think you can do work beforehand, about explaining to players, don't change your mind, because that's the last thing. You pick your side and you go, and if the goalkeeper saves it, the goalkeeper saves it. There's still an awful lot of luck involved in penalties. You can hit the best penalty in the world, and if the goalkeeper guesses right and he's got a large wingspan, he can get his fingertips on it. You can be too precise and try and put it in the top corner. There's a lot of variables in play in a situation like that, but I would always go with the guy that really wants to take one, the guy who steps forward, chin up, chest out, and says, I'm taking a penalty. He's obviously in the mind frame that he wants to do it. So I would be inclined to let those guys go ahead and do it. But as I said, there's too many variables. You can talk about it, you can kind of replicate it as much as you want, but you will never replicate the actual feeling,
Yeah. Did you score yours, Gary, in that playoff?
I did, and I like Damo said there. I've learned how to take a penalty now. I think it's a good way of taking it, and I did. And if I'd missed, we'd have been out. But I don't. I just felt I'd rather have that than the regret of not taking one. I'd rather take one and deal with whether or not I scored or not than not taking one.
Yeah. There's no blame attached, really. Unless you try a Panenka. And you really start taking the piss. If a guy misses a penalty, and even if he misses the target, like, you're a human being, and there's a lot attached to it. So I don't believe players should feel pressure in terms of, like, geez, if I miss this, I'm going to be lambasted. I know some of the England penalty takers after 1990 and even 1996, Southgate and Pearce might have got a little bit of unwarranted grief, but there's nobody in this country is going to,
Davo, you're really challenging your Keith Andrews there. Positive mindset.
Liam Senior I was going for.
I do agree. There is definitely. I think it's a hangover from that English tabloid era. The missing a penalty, you were vilified. You were on the front page of the tabloids the next morning. I don't think that same culture is here. Obviously, people will remember, but I don't think it'll be. There'll be no vilification, to say the least. It'll be sympathy more than anything.
Exactly that. Yeah.
Gary,
I think it's important to convey that point to the players that if you do go to a penalty shootout, please don't feel like, if I miss this, I'm going to be on the back page of the Sun with a turnip on my head. You won't be. It'll, even years down the line, when you meet someone in a pub, it'll almost be an arm around the shoulder of, like, geez, man, that must have been tough.
Yeah.
People are much more empathetic these days.
Unless it's a Panenka, in which case you deserve everything you get. You deserve everything you get.
For the love of God, no Panenkas.
Gary, sorry, that's too intriguing a point you made there for me not to just fully pull the thread. You learned how to take a penalty. Do you want to share with us the Breen technique?
Yeah, I don't mind saying it to you. It's a side foot to the goalkeeper's left, and if he goes early, you just close your foot and put it into the other side.
That's the Matt Letitia technique.
Well,
there you go.
He might look a bit more elegant than mine.
This fella scores one penalty and he's on here 30 years later.
Yeah, because it's a 100% record.
You just open out your body, last minute you whip it in, no problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Apparently, statistically, the most successful penalty is rifling it high down the middle. I read a couple of years ago, but that always feels risky to me. I think you're a brave man to go down the middle.
Yeah, when a goalkeeper just stands there, don't they? I don't like it, to be perfectly honest.
We'll talk about specifics of the game. Just one quick memory from you, Gary, if we could. Tehran 2001. 15th of November. Ireland are 2-0 up, having won the first leg on the 10th. They are in Tehran in the Azadi Stadium. First time in over 20 years since the Islamic Revolution there that women were allowed into the stadium. There were 300 Irish women allowed in, and Ireland win 1-0. Just have a clip. You sent this to me, Gary, on WhatsApp. I think this isn't the anthem. Excuse my ignorance. I think it's like a prayer almost, but you can just hear like the intensity of the occasion. They're only 2-0 down. There's 100,000 in the stadium, and the camera's scanning all the players, just to give jog memories for older listeners, and then younger listeners can get a sense of the intensity of the start of the game. Have a listen. And it just goes on in that vein, Gary, and the camera at this stage is, going through all the Irish players. And just, you look like a model back in the day, by the way, the bit of stubble, the slicked hair. David Connolly looked about 14. I know we're all getting older. He looks so young. But it was, you could just see on all the players' faces, there was no drastic expressions, but there was just a sense of, this is very different to anything I've experienced before.
Yeah, exactly that, Joe. And I mean, as it's well documented, I grew up in North London, in Camden, which obviously London is one of the most cosmopolitan cities in the world, and Camden even more so. So people I went to school with, so many different faiths, but I've never experienced anything like that as a young lad or even as a player. Damien would tell you that sometimes when you go to away games at international level, and the national anthems are brilliant to experience, but that felt so different. And yeah, I think you can see on the lads' faces that we weren't kind of like told it or to expect it or anything like that. But it was brilliant to hear it, 100,000 people, and how kind of like, I don't know, just different sound that, really, really kind of like a little intimidating. But at the same time, I think if you look at the lads, and this is something we had as a group, because we've been to some difficult places over the years, Turkey in the playoff before, away. We've been to the Balkans when they were just coming out of their war and stuff like that. So these were tough places to go. But what we did have, and I think you see it there, is a kind of little bit of a nodding that the lads are like, yeah, let's get this done. This is something to be enjoyed. And when we actually walked out on that pitch as well, this massive banner just unfurled which said 3-0. We were thinking, all right, well, okay, we'll see. And just an amazing experience, it really was.
Yeah, I'd say it was. Yeah. And do you remember much about the build-up in terms of the hotel, or like were there fireworks outside? Was it all very intimidating on that front, or was it okay?
Treated so well.
Right.
What was noticeable that even in the hotels, like the staff and the women would all be in, you could only ever see their eyes. They'd all be in their full traditional dress or whatever. So it was for young guys like us going to those parts of the world, an amazing experience. Treated really well, and it was just that it just then changed dramatically. Then from once you boarded the bus to head into the game, it was like, okay, they're going to do everything they can to make it difficult for us. But we were a team at that time that had travelled well, to be perfectly honest, and we actually did lose that game to the frustration. Really frustrating that we'd give away a corner late on or something like that, and they won. But it wasn't enough time for them to chase that equalising goal, and we got through.
Yeah, because on paper it looks very tense. Oh my goodness, 2-0 first leg, 1-0 second leg. But it was the 92nd minute from a corner, as you say, and effectively the whistle went then, so there wasn't, 5-6 minutes of that kind of.
Yeah, and their goal
tension.
was it was out of nowhere really. We were quite comfortable for the whole game. I do remember a couple of chances Dave Connie went through, and he is really good finisher normally, and it just whistled past the post. So, but it's moments like that, and it'll be similar to the game now for the lads on Thursday, that when you do get those chances, you've got to take them.
And the story goes that you're all on the plane home that evening, that night, and second you have liftoff, then the beer's open and the alcohol's open. Is that right?
I don't know, to be fair, because we came back, I think that was a Thursday evening, so we came back in the middle of the night, and then I ended up playing for Coventry on the Saturday. I think a lot of those fans didn't actually, but I played for Coventry on the Saturday morning or the Saturday midday. Literally incredible, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I think if you hear the Mick McCarthy being interviewed after, he's saying, "Oh, we're gonna have a few now," and you're thinking, "I'm sure there was." Yeah.
Yeah. Damien, you must have watched that. What age would you have been in '01, Damien?
20.
20. Do you
So
remember
yeah.
watching it?
Oh no, of course I do. Yeah, geez, I remember. Yeah, I remember talking to the lads about it. It's an incredible experience for those guys to go through that. Apparently the stadium was full up at like 2 in the afternoon, and the traffic getting to the stadium, and you hear all the stories. But yeah, I remember it was an amazing viewing spectacle, I suppose. And I would imagine that was an easy atmosphere to play in. But I suppose as a player, you always bring it back to, like, no matter what's happening. I used to always do this, like, it's only a game. There's still four white lines and there's two goals at the end. No matter where you play in the world or what was surrounding you. And that was, whenever I played in any game, whether it was, amateur or right up to big games, it's still just four white lines and two goals, and it's the grass.
And to bring it back to Thursday, then, advantage, disadvantage, or makes no odds to Ireland that it's not in a 40, 50,000 seater stadium, that it's in a tight 19,000 and presumably, 1,000 Irish tickets, maybe 1,500, 2,000 get in, but a tight, intimate 19,000 seater stadium. Does that feel good, bad, indifferent?
I don't think it makes any difference for me as a player. Like, once the whistle went, that was it.
Yeah.
It was just, you're just so engrossed in what's happening. Your mind, if there's a break in play, you might have a glance around, or in the warm up, you might be looking at the stadium thinking this is nice, or I like this. But as soon as the whistle goes, again, four white lines, two goals, one at either end, and grass, and that's it. And that's the only thing you're worried about.
It's so true that because I think a lot of people kind of say to you like, "Oh, what was that atmosphere like?" And Damon hit the nail on the head, because all the kind of drama and the build up to a game, even in the warm ups or whatever, it's very emotional. But when that whistle goes, and then suddenly it's like, "Oh, this is what we do."
Yeah,
We're
it's your
playing a game
job.
of
Yeah.
football. Yeah, and it's amazing how that kind of mentality just kicks in instantly.
But if you allow your mind to drift and you get
Yeah,
involved in things like that, well, then you're not focusing on the game. If you're listening to the crowd, or you're watching the stadium, or that call, I think there was a call to prayer before the Iran game that we were listening to there. If you're listening to that, you can zone out and can kind of compartmentalize that. And again, it's just all about the game, and you're focused on the task at hand, and you're trying to remember your job and what you're supposed to do, and then the game just passes you by. It's only when you're kind of Gary and myself now, you're finished, you look back and you go, geez, that was a mad experience. But
yeah.
you don't really have any abiding memory by it, only the very fact that we went to a World Cup.
Yeah.
But on that, I think the best advice that we could give the lads now, Thursday, certainly that in terms of the fact that we're ex-players, is don't allow the emotion and how close you are to fulfilling your dream. And I know it'll be difficult to manage that, but they have to just be cold, like clear in their minds. Just focus on the game. Don't focus on what potentially is there if you win. And as Damo said in the penalties, absolutely don't focus on what could be there if you lose. Just concentrate on what you've been built to do, what you've earned to do, and what you've been doing your whole life. And that's just so important.
Yeah. One last question before I get into the specifics of the game. Hamer Hallgrimsson, just towards the end of his press conference last week, said, "Oh, by the way, I'm here until 2028. I've got a contract extension." I think everyone there was sorry, because it hadn't been revealed or announced by the FAI until he said that. He said the FAI very much pushed it, wanted it done, locked down before these games. All kind of came from their side. I don't know to what extent the FAI felt he's some kind of a flight risk, or would be, so some other country would swoop in and take him if they didn't get this done. What are your thoughts on that? Damien, you can give us yours first.
I think it's a good move. It's a good move on both parts. I think even up to this point, I think Hamer has done enough to warrant it. I think from the FAI's point of view, you look at the debacle of trying to appoint Hamer and how long it took, and the absolute lack of viable candidates that were out there. We don't want to go into another situation like that. We found a guy that's more than adept. He's very, very good at organising teams. He pivoted midway through this campaign to get us through it. So he's shown that he's able to adapt. And I think he's very good with the media. I think everybody seems to have a good sense. I wouldn't imagine, I haven't seen anything, but I wouldn't imagine anyone was like, oh, I'm not happy with this. I think if we did manage to qualify for a World Cup, I think Hamer's phone would be absolutely like tearing up with nations ranked between 50 and 90 in the world of like that we want you. And I'm talking all over the world. I'm sure there'd be African, Middle East teams, Far East teams would be interested, South American teams would be interested in him. With what he did in comparison to where Ireland were if he did get us to a World Cup. I still think that his body of work of getting us to this point, and even if he gets to the Denmark game, I think there will still be a lot of job options out there for him. So I think on both parts it makes sense. And my overriding thought is I'm pleased that he wanted to do it, which means he's happy here. He wants to stay here because he could have been quite within his rights to wait. And then, the contract offer will probably still be there even if we didn't go through in these playoff games. So, look, I think it's good that he wanted to stay, and it's good that he chose to stay.
The only argument I heard against it, Gary, is that if potentially Czechia or next week, say, against Denmark, akin to the kind of 5-1 that O'Neill and Keane suffered, if something like that happens, then it can just kind of rupture the thing a bit, and you might want a clean break at that point. That's the strongest argument against, I've heard.
I don't really take that much stock in the extremes of a result. Likewise, I wouldn't go over like in terms of. I would like to just review the whole body of his work in terms of what he's done. I don't understand why it was done now. I'm not sure what the benefits would be. And if I give an insight, if I was a player, I wouldn't be. I'd be literally thinking, if they done that for us to feel great about going into this playoffs as a player, I'd be thinking, well, I'm so focused on the game. I'm not. I'm delighted you've got the contract, boss, but that's not going to make me want to play any better because of it. The extremes for me is an example. I thought that first half. I was with Damien. We watched that first half against England at Wembley. I thought that first half was exceptional. I know we lost 5-0, but I thought that performance in that first half, in terms of how the team functioned, with and without the ball, Collins playing in that kind of hybrid centre back position, I was so impressed with it. I don't, and then I agree totally with Damo said there. I've loved the fact that he came out and said, I'm not, to quote Jaime, I'm not a populist in terms of changing the way we're going to play against Armenia. Quite turgid stuff at the time, but he recognised that was going to be the way to get us forward. We ended up winning that game in the second half. He made no apology for it. I've got no issues about how we play. I've always said it's about how effective we are in the tactics that have been chosen. I would still look at it and think, in the euphoria of that Hungary game, there were periods where I thought, what are we doing here? I wasn't quite sure what we were doing. It felt a little bit off the cuff. And I would just be looking at his whole body of work. I think we've got I've got a lot of low opinion of ourselves as a country because we've struggled for so long that when someone suddenly comes in, we're like thinking, is this guy Pep Guardiola? He's not that. I think he's a really genuine guy. I love how he conducts himself. I totally agree there. And I totally agree with Damo saying that the FAI just cannot go through it again. They're literally saying, we've got someone, he's a good guy, we're doing well. They did not want to entertain having to find anyone else. My point on that would be that I still believe we've got our own domestic coaches who are capable of doing what he has done.
That's interesting. So you think a significant part of this is the FAI almost lacking confidence in themselves to conduct another good search?
Oh, yeah, no, 100% in terms of if that was what Damien was saying, that's what I believe. Yeah, I don't think they would back themselves to be able to do it. It was chaotic the last time. I think the issue they'll always have is that the people who are probably our leading coaches, wherever they are, you think like Lee Carsley, something like that. Keith Andrews now as a Premier League manager and the kudos attached to that. I think they'd think that they wouldn't be able to entice them. I don't think think that they were able to get them. I do think there's some younger other coaches coming around, whether or not Robbie would take it, those type of guys, Damien Duff, Bradley as well. I do think we do have a coaches able to get this Ireland team win. And it's also the fact that this is going to be a home national championships for the Euros. I think it's incredible we've gone this early on the decision.
Okay, interesting. Short break. Let's talk about the game in a bit of detail then. Welcome back. Gary and Damien are still with us. So, well, I guess if you take Hungary away as where we were, the team that night, the back three was Jacob Breen, Nathan Collins and Darragh O'Shea. It was Coleman and Scales, fullbacks. It was Cullen and Malumbi in midfield, Ogbene and Azaz, and then Troy Parrott. So, Caoimhin Kelleher, despite the concern of the Leeds Twitter account, is fit. Nathan Collins back in the Brentford team of late, played the 90 at the weekend. Seamus Coleman hasn't played since November when he came off at Old Trafford. Pretty much on the bench a lot lately. 6 of their last 10 games he's been on the bench. Darrow Shea's played every single minute of Championship action for Ipswich. They have a lot of clean sheets. Jacob Bryan's playing loads for Everton, including at the weekend, beat Chelsea. Scales suspended, but Ryan Manning has been obviously very much in for Southampton. And then midfield, that might be maybe the key decision for Hal Grimson, given that there's no Josh Cullen. Malumbi's there, Jason Knight's there, Jack Taylor's there. Anyone else you care to mention? And then Ogbene did come off the bench against Wrexham at the weekend. He hadn't been getting much football with the loan arrangement at Sheffield United. Azaz is playing very well at club level. 35 plus games for Southampton this season. And then Troy Parrott needs no introduction. So that back five for start, I mean, you're both defenders and obviously we're going to need to be solid. Coleman, you're presuming just because he's a great trainer and naturally fit is just going to, and because of who he is to Ireland, is going to start. And then presumably it'll be Ryan Manning at left wing back, Damien, and then the three boys in the middle, and that's kind of set and pretty good ahead of Kelleher.
Yeah, I would think so. You could make a case that Robbie Brady might come in at left wing back, possibly. But yeah, I think that's pretty much set. Seamus is Seamus. He's able to dig out a performance like he always does. Now you got to look at that role as I mean, it's stated as a right wing back, but essentially it's probably going to be right cornerback. You know, where you're just tucking alongside. And Jacob Bryan is only going to be 7 or 8 yards inside him, and then the touchline is only going to be 7 or 8 yards outside him. So the spaces he's going to have to work in are very, very small. And Seamus is clever enough to know that if he does decide to step in, if we have a good spell of possession and he does join in, then it's 100% possession for us, and it's not going to get turned over, and we're going to get counter-attacked. You know, that may happen once or twice, but I suppose it's the balance of probability. So Seamus is going to be well capable of filling in there. I think the back three have probably settled now. Long term, I think I spoke to you previous about my issues. I think with moving forward, that this flat back five probably isn't the future of where we're going to be. At some point, we're going to have to be able to take the game to teams a little bit better. Otherwise, we're just going to keep sinking and end up being a top 3 team in the Nations League. I think when you look at the manager's thoughts about how he, you know, when he first got the job, he spoke about the weight of the jersey. It was difficult for players. He wanted us to be more attacking, more positive. He tried to do that, and we got our asses handed to us. So then, rather than try and come up with something clever mid-group, he just went, okay, what's everybody comfortable with here? Flat back five, low block, counter-attack. And he went, my aim right now is not the long-term future of Irish football. It is this qualifying campaign, and it's to get to a World Cup. And the best way for me to salvage this campaign is to just go to this. It'll be interesting to see for Euro 2028 what we decide to do. I don't think this is a long term. He wants to try and transition out of this and get more towards a mid block or a flat back 4. So you know, I said I have questions over when Nathan can play in the back 4. You see the weekend, Brentford were in a flat back 5 as well, away to Leeds. So I think when Nathan's asked to play in the back 4, the spaces get very big for him and he struggles a little bit. I think that's why he came out of the team. So it'll just be interesting, the future of it. But yeah, I don't see anything different for Thursday or Tuesday against Czechia and Denmark. It'll be flat back 5, it'll be counter-attacking, and everybody's comfortable. Everybody knows that role inside out. There'll be no long tactical sessions required for that.
Yeah, agree, Gary?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think at this moment in time, the squad has actually got a structure that in difficult moments they feel comfortable leaning back on. And I think that's so important because in any game you play, there's going to be periods where you're under pressure. You've got to really believe in what you're actually doing. I think at times under the previous manager, they didn't have that. That's why they were opened up, whatever. But I think, especially when I think about that Hungary game, which has got us where we are now, they started so well Hungary. We were really under the cosh, but they were able just to manage it. I know, like with the likes of Seamus there, but Parrott, we highlight his goals. He was sensational off the ball in terms of relieving pressure. There was one specific moment after about 8 or 9 minutes where he had about 2 players all over him and they were swamped on us, and he just relieved the pressure, drew the foul. We got up the pitch, and from that moment on, it just allows you as the defence to go, all right, breathe. Yeah. Okay, let's settle down a little bit here now. Where if he hadn't have done that, it could quite easily have gone 2-0, and then it's like panic station. So I like that. I totally agree with Damo there that back 5 allows us to feel comfortable within our surroundings.
Yeah. He's so good at that part. He really and so many strikers, and I'm not digging out your friend here, Damon, they don't respect the ball. and they're just too careless. Like a ball's fizzed up to them, and they're like, didn't manage to keep that one. And you lads would have felt it, particularly given where you played. It's like, Jesus, man, we really needed you to hold that. Like, this is the game.
No, it wasn't quite said like that, Joe. The way you said it, would you mind being able to hold that ball up, please? It was a bit more kind of industrial.
But it's so important, isn't it? And Parrott's really, really good at that. It's a great point.
He is, because he's not the biggest Damo, is he? He's not like a 6'4" centre forward, but he knows how to use his body. He's really good at that.
Yeah, you have to be careful as well, because Troy isn't. I mean, he's not slow, but he's not a pacey, player like Luis Suarez, who's comfortable high up the pitch. Ball gets spun down the side, and he can chase it down and get a throw in or get something out of it. It has to be quality ball up to him. It has to be relatively close to him, and it doesn't have to be perfect, like Gary was saying there. Most centre forwards complaining if it's not bang on their chest. It has to be a reasonable ball up to him, and he can get hold of it. But if we're under pressure and we're slashing at clearances and we're just hooking it anywhere, and he's just kind of battling in underneath two centre backs, it's very difficult for any centre forward to deal with that. So we do have to be mindful that, as good and all as he is, the service up to him has to be reasonable.
Do you know? So then I'm fascinated to hear how you guys see the shape of the team or whatever. But just a thought on that point. Another memory from Hungary, and it's assuming Ogbene is going to play, and this is where I guess Hal Grimson gets a look at him in training and sees how the lack of minutes are affecting him or not affecting him. Like I said, he came off the bench at the weekend, but there were one or two big diags. It must have been Scales, because I feel like it's a left footer, but he just kind of pinged it over the top diagonal. And Ogbene did brilliantly against his opposite man and caused havoc. And actually, that was a real threat for Ireland. And it doesn't take sophisticated interplay to make it happen.
Yeah, but it's still a good quality ball. I think
it is. Yeah.
Dismissive of long balls forward. If it's a nice clip into a dangerous area, then player with his pace and kind of like endeavour it unsettles you as a defence. Of course it does, and it changes the dynamic, because you suddenly think, if we go too high and condense Ireland, Hungary did, and then there's an out ball over the top, it just drops it, and it just allows you as a defence on the other end of the pitch to get up there. It'd be fascinating, like you're right, in terms of where we are fitness levels, but it's such a massive game. We talked about service into Troy as well, so the dynamic of that midfield setup is going to be fascinating, because you need that combative nature in there to kind of stay in the game. You'll need physicality, because the Czechs are quite a big team. But then you look back to when we were struggling at 2-1, what was the in-game management of Jaime there? And it was to drop Finazaz deeper to get on the ball. And we had John O'Shea in with us at Premier Sports, and he said it was by design. It wasn't like me just looking or them looking at it and thinking we need to do it now. They had predicted it. That's what he had told us. They felt that would happen, that was our option. And that's why, as well, when you think about Harvey Vale coming into the squad out of nowhere, and then Jaime is saying he's got that last ball in him, he's got that moment that Finazaz has. And I've got a friend who's a big Middlesbrough supporter, and was telling me that Finazaz wouldn't dominate games from 1 minute to 90, but he would consistently deliver that big moment. And he did with that pass over the top to get us level at 2-2. So whether or not they put him in there early, it's going to be incredible. It's going to be so fascinating to see what the team that is selected to start, but also with in mind, what's the team going to be prepared to finish the game.
Well, do you want to take a stab at it, Gary? So obviously Josh Cullen is out from Hungary. He was alongside Malumbi. So there's a sense, I mean, maybe he'll shock us all with his Zaz, but there is a sense he's going to go for more of a Jason Knight or a Jack Taylor. So, another kind of worker in there alongside Malumbi, and then potentially it is Ogbene and Azaz ahead of them. Is that how you see them starting? And then if the need calls for it, Azaz drops deeper, and it's a similar kind of template to what they did in Hungary?
It's a difficult one, because you're looking at it and thinking and listening to the sound bites. And I'll be always kind of like trying to find, what's he saying here? What's he suggesting here, Jaime? And then even Bosun coming into the squad, out of nowhere, really. I know he's a player that we've always identified as someone coming through, but he's not played. He hasn't played much for his club as well. Even his club manager's not particularly happy that he's actually turning up. Doesn't feel he's fit enough. But he referenced him as his physicality and being needed. Because you probably would have looked at Connor Coventry, who came on as someone who could maybe fulfill that Cullen role, and he's not even in the squad. And we've seen this before with Jaime in terms of just where's the consistency in selection, and it looks that he literally looks at it and thinks, okay, this is what I need for this particular moment. I like the fact that Alan Brown's back in. I don't understand why he hasn't been there for 18 months. he looks the perfect prototype of a midfielder under Jaime in terms of that physicality, that energy to do the work defensively, which we've seen him do so well over his Ireland career, but also that ability to break forward. And he's a goal threat and he's playing so well for his club. So many players coming into the mix.
Yeah. Do you want to read the tea leaves, Damien?
Yeah, I think the back five will be the back five. Manning or Brady. Manning was introduced at half time in that Hungary game and made a huge difference.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of other games as well where he came on. But you got to think that we were behind in those games. So you're almost like, okay, we've got nothing to lose here.
Yeah.
And also, invariably, we're playing against 10 men because we've had 3 red cards in that. So when you bring someone like Ryan Manning on, you understand that you're going to have a good chunk more of the ball. So would you start with him? I'm not sure. I think Robbie, if he's anyway fit, I think he could get a look in. So I'm not sure on that one. I would probably go with Manning just
on that
because...
one, Damo, as well, is that whoever selected that left wing back, a lot of people say about Manning's quality at set balls, but Robbie gives you that as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, no, I think so. But I think, again, you don't want to go ultra defensive. You still want to pack a punch and you don't want to like roll over and let the Czechs just dominate the ball and all of a sudden now you're under the gun. And it comes very, very difficult then. So you still want to be able to have pose a threat. And I think Manning is a nice balance there. I think in the middle of the park, I would go with Malumbi. He's the natural, probably the only natural player that could replace Cullen. And I would go with Alan Brown alongside him.
Right,
I think his legs in midfield, his experience. You also know that he can drop back in. He knows how to play in a low block. He has the physicality and the physical prowess for that. But also when the balls get flung up to Troy, he's that one player that can chew up that 30 yards and get in contact with him because he has that ability. I've watched him play a lot. He reads that ball, and as it's in the air, he's on his bike and he does chew up that ground. He's a strong, powerful runner. So yeah, I think that's a nice midfield too for me there. And again, there's enough experience in it. Obviously, Troy up top. I would probably go with Chidozie as well. I mean, this is ultimately probably going to be a 5-4-1. So you need to be able to transition out of that. And I think Chidozie is perfect for that. I've thought about the quality service that needs to be up to Troy, almost on his chest, or good. With Chidozie, you just get in the general area and people go, you know what I mean? And I trust me, Gary's probably saying we love playing with those players.
Yeah.
They make a bad ball look good.
Yeah, you've got a 30 by 30, and as long as you get it in that, he'll make something of it, and all of a sudden that's a great ball. So I think Chidozie gives you that ability. And listen, I said this before, I think a lot of those players would have, even if they're not playing at their club, they would have been well aware of this fixture on the horizon. And if they're not playing, they would have been speaking to the conditioning staff at their clubs, so they'll be ready.
And Azaz, I have a kind of... I'm probably being a bit touch harsh on him, and I don't see him at club level enough to really appreciate all that he's doing. But like I'd say 50 minutes into that Hungary game, I was a bit fed up with his Azaz. Like too often, if he's back to goal in a congested midfield, which is often how he's coming onto the ball, he doesn't keep it. Like, and too often it's like you've got technique, or you got to keep it better, or the game will pass him by a touch, or he looks a bit lightweight, and then he went in, and I would have said this guy has to come off, and then Hamer switches him, and him facing the play and a bit of time on the ball and head up, and you're like, oh wow, okay, I didn't know you had that. So, I don't know, is he a bit square pegging in a round hole here? Is he better off the bench when the game opens up and maybe he goes into that deeper role? Or would you just get him on the pitch?
Well, it felt that game, I had similar assessment as you just said there, Joe, but it seemed like exactly like my mate, the Middlesbrough fan, he hit the nail on the head. He said, at times you'll be frustrated. He doesn't dominate. He can be a little bit loose in possession as well, but it's that one big moment. He consistently does it. It's why Southampton paid the money for him. It's why he's doing it there. That he could propel Southampton into the Premier League now. And they're the moments,
But Gary,
they're the moments that decide games.
A question for you: can we afford to carry somebody who's all the negative
Good
attributes
question.
you're saying there, and then all of a sudden, for that moment in 88 minutes, could you be 2 or 3-0 down because he's been turned the ball over, we've been counter-attacked? So I think what Joe's saying there is salient. Like, if the game you need to drop him back, you can bring him on, but starting with him is a risk. But again, I don't like. It's tough for Heimer because you don't want to go there and just go ultra defensive and say, right, we're just covering up on the ropes and we're going to hope for a set piece. Bit like Arsenal yesterday. So, you know.
We'll come to that. We'll come
Yes,
to that.
Damo.
Sorry, I couldn't wait to get it.
For me there.
I couldn't wait to get it in. No, but you don't want to go there and do that and send that message to the players. You still want to pick a team that speaks to the players to say, okay, we're going to be defensively strong, but these Czech lads don't bother us. They're there for the taking as well. We can get at them. They're not as grey as you know. If we're playing Portugal, it's difficult. But you want to go there with a mentality of like, we're going there to win, and you know, when we get a chance to counter attack, or when we get a chance to lay siege to their 18-yard box, we need to take it.
Yeah, and of course, in that Hungary game, we will fixate on the brilliant pass, but midfielders run off him a few times. They actually could have got the goal on before he made that pass when he went deeper. That it was. I know we were throwing caution to the wind and we were chasing a result, but it's a great point.
Yeah, well, we'll watch that one. On the Czechia side, then, just to finish up. So, as people know, they've a new manager in Miroslav Kubek. He was appointed after they lost to the Faroes after a fairly dismal 2025. 74 years of age. He was the Czech manager of the year in 24. Has managed Sparta Prague. In that way, I think that you just get to a stage in life where you're like, I'm just going to say what I think. He hasn't been like overly complimentary of Ireland. I think he's been fairly realistic. He said, from my point of view, they're an average team in terms of play, but they have immense heart and they're extremely solid and determined. It's a team that plays when the opponent allows them to play. And if the opponent does allow them to play too much, then they are strong. They play island football. And he was asked what he means by island football. It means a simple game, crosses into the penalty area, no great technique, speed, efficiency, fighting spirit. I mean, I know I should be like, how dare you? And I'm like, well, you know, yeah, okay.
It's a fairly good
you know. But the interesting thing is, I can imagine how Grimson, John O'Shea and his whole team were like, right, let's get every Czechia game there's ever been and watch it. Like generally last year under their previous manager, they were kind of a 4-2-3-1 team. And it seems Kubek favours three at the back in, 3-5-2, 3-4-1-2, whichever. So in a sense, they're going to be sitting through a lot of 4-2-3-1s or 4-3-3 type matches. And they're all the while knowing it's probably going to be three at the back. What tends to happen, Damien, tactically when you have two systems which mirror each other?
Us and them in the match, is it?
Like so assuming he goes three at the back, five at the back, and we do something similar, three at the back, five at the back.
Yeah, I mean,
what type of game tends to happen?
So ultimately, they could mirror each other insofar as they're both three at the back.
Yeah.
But there could be a 3-4-3, and there could be different variations with their wide players tucked inside. Ours could end up being a 5-4-1. So very rarely do you get them,
an exact.
The exact same, and they're both implemented the exact same way. But if they are, then it just becomes personal battles. Who can come out on top? If you've got 3v3 in the middle of the park, it's which three can come out on top. Which three can get on the ball a little bit more. I always feel that like possession is 9/10 of the laws, and whoever gets hold of the ball obviously has a bigger say in it insofar as they can push forward. You got to remember they're at home as well. There's a lot of variables in that. I think it's difficult with him. You wouldn't necessarily, as you said, go back and watch the Czech games, but you'd go back and watch his Sparta Prague games, and see what way he set those up. And then you're trying to marry up, okay, so he had these players at his disposal at his club level and he played this way. Has he got similar players? Do we think he's going to go this way? Ultimately, with us playing that system of, a flat back five and probably four across the middle and one up front, doesn't really matter what they do. We're just going to suck it up. What you're looking for is the weaknesses on the turnover. You're looking for okay, so if they do play three at the back and the wing backs are high and wide, a little bit like, for argument's sake, let's say Greece did, like where they took the wide players inside and the full backs provide the width. When we turn the ball over, you want to tell Troy Parrott, can you tend to pick up these areas on the halfway line? Because as centre backs, we want to know where he is. So if I'm under pressure and my head's down and I can't get a look, I need to know in my mind's eye, I'm trying to hit a certain area on the halfway line because Troy Parrott's going to be in that area. There's no point in me clearing it down the right-hand side and Troy's over on the left, So you're just trying to figure out ways to counter-attack. So, like you said, you will be looking back more at his club game and then looking at the players' disposal.
Yeah, I guess the downside for them is he's got 2 training sessions to potentially implement a whole new system, which isn't straightforward. Fellas, how confident are we, Gary?
I am confident, actually. I don't think this Czech team is as good as the Hungary or the Portugal team. I know kind of every match is different as such. I think it will be difficult. Of course it will be. I know their home record is quite strong. The fact that Stick and Salk He played for Lyon at the weekend. There's a lot of talk about whether or not them two players would be fit and available, and they elevate this team. We've all played for teams where some players within your 11 make you so much better, and those two certainly do that. It literally is a game that can go any way, but I would be saying to those lads now, you've been saying for so long to us over, it feels like 4 or 5 years, that we've got a big win in us, and you proved it. We'd heard it so often, we've never seen it, and then we suddenly saw it when it mattered most, and it matters most now. So they've got to do it again. I think discipline's going to be massive. Don't want to see any of those players in there like designed an absolute determination to do well that they lose their head. You have to be careful that sending offs happen and things like that, because obviously that has really benefited our whole campaign with other teams losing their head. And I think we're actually good at that. We've got a few lads who are quite good at messing the opponents about, and they've reacted, and we've seen that. So that's a good attribute to have, but it could go either way.
Yeah, that's my sense. I mean, I don't have a clue what's going to happen, Damien.
Listen, my confidence levels is such that if we don't win on Thursday night, I'll be incredibly disappointed on Friday morning.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I will be like, Jesus, that was an opportunity. Because listen, and that's not saying that they're a poor side. They're not. They're a very good side. But this is a very winnable game for us. And if we implement our game plan and we have the mindset correct, we should come out of this game. And I'm fully expecting us to, without being any arrogance or condescension towards the Czechs. Tuesday night, Denmark is going to be a very difficult game. If we do get there, and I don't want to get ahead of myself. And my confidence is, if we lost to Denmark, I'd be saying, well, no, it's fair enough. But I'm expecting us to win on Thursday, and I'm expecting to have a lovely, happy media shows on Friday. And I just think that the build up then from Thursday to Tuesday is just like, I mean, we've missed stuff like that, to be in the country where, it will come to a standstill in the lead up to that game. And I just hope that will be huge progress for everybody involved. And it will give us huge lift going into Euro 2028.
Yeah.
Joe, do you remember I said to you the last time when we played against Portugal, and we said, I've never heard the Irish fans sing Freed from Desire.
Yeah.
I am so looking forward to that if we actually do manage it, because that will be sensational.
Stop. I was reprimanding a radio show I heard last week debating, should we open the pubs at 6 a.m. for the World Cup? And I was like, can we just, everyone, just take it down?
Nah.
Let's wait till we get there for that debate. Before you go then, Arsenal, Damien.
Yeah. Geez, that was interesting. A lot of talking points there. Listen, they're a team that have gone through the season in a defensive mode, and they've just relied on their structure and the moments to go their way, and they have gone their way all year. But I think that in a cup final, you have to go and win a cup final. It very rarely comes to you unless you're playing a team that's a lesser team than you. But like Man City took the game to Arsenal and they just had no answer. They got taken apart in the wide areas. Hincapié and Ben White by Doku and Semenyo. They got destroyed in the middle of the midfield, which I don't think I would ever say with a Man City midfield that contained, a half-fit Rodri and a Bernardo Silva that's on the way out. They could not get any service. They could not turn the tide. And I think it's going to be a huge blow to Arsenal's kind of bubble of infallibility that they'd built up, that nobody can bully us, nobody can outrun us, we're good on set plays and we can just show up like the schoolyard bullies and do what we want to do. Well, the schoolyard bully's got a bloody nose now, and it's going to be interesting to see how they react, because once that kind of veil of invincibility of what they probably felt they had is now gone, especially the most important time of the season. Now I still think they will go on and win the league. I still think they'll get enough on it, but again, I just think that it's a negative mindset. It's a on the back foot mindset. It's a the game will come to us as opposed to us going and getting it. You can get away with that in November when it's a league game against Brighton and a draw doesn't hurt and there's no real pressure on it. But when you get to the crunch, second half of a cup final, and Man City got the tide going in their direction, it was stunning how Arsenal could not wrestle control that game back.
Because sometimes, Gary, when City are doing that to a team, they still look very vulnerable on the counter-attack, but that didn't even seem a remote possibility. And as Damien said, Rodri looked $1 million out there. The two wide boys were having the game of their lives, and Arsenal just looked like frozen.
Yeah, the occasion, amazing, isn't it, in terms of just mentality was in their desperation to get that silverware. They literally froze. That's not taking anything away from City, but certainly when the team sheets came in, you felt, okay, Arsenal's so strong at set pieces, and you're playing Trafford in goal. He's a fantastic shot stopper, but doesn't have the physical presence of Donnarumma. Then you counter that by saying both their first choice centre backs are not playing. Gueye, through the fact that he's been cup tied, Diaz is injured. You're thinking it's a great opportunity for Arsenal. But that second half, they literally came out City and they just literally said to Arsenal, "This is what it's about, getting over the line, and you guys just can't do it."
Yeah. Do you think there'll be ramifications for Arsenal? Is this the beginning of a spectacular wobble, or are they about okay? They've enough of a
No,
lead.
I still look at the scenario and I think that they got a favourable draw in the FA Cup and in the Champions League as such. I know some of the better teams in Europe probably will expose what City did yesterday in terms of that inability to attack the teams consistently. That they'll have long periods, like the better teams in Champions League will have long periods of having the ball, and it will ask questions of Arsenal then. But I still think Arteta should just remind his team and where they actually are in the Premier League, that they've got such a healthy lead at the moment. And you do look at City and think they just can't consistently. They drop too many points, and that's probably why Arsenal have got enough of a lead at the moment. But in head-to-heads, as Damo just said there, City flexed their muscles and just said, like, listen, we're serial winners. You guys are not.
Yeah.
It's a different mindset. Like City have this, we want to win this. Arsenal had that mind, and they've had it all year of, let's not lose this. Let's just, we have it.
And that
let's
was what City
just
accused Arsenal of the last season, wasn't it, at the Etihad, where I'm not sure who came out and said it, but one of the City players said, we could tell they just came here for the draw. They only want the draw, where City go to places to win.
It's amazing, Gary, because obviously people know you're an Arsenal fan, how maligned this Arsenal team are now. Like, even Jamie Carragher was writing a piece in advance of the final saying Arsenal have managed to make everybody, the neutrals, cheer on City, which has never happened before in kind of history almost. Like, every time I see Martin Keown on TalkSport, he's just like, he's like the lone man out there defending Arsenal. Has the way Arsenal have been talked about gone too far? Like, they're being talked about as like anti-football. We saw what the Brighton manager, sorry, name escapes me, Fabian Hertzler said about them the other week. Like, in the media, they're portrayed as like, they're going to be the worst champions ever. And like, we've had a degree of it on the show for sure. Like, you wouldn't say they're playing champagne football by any means. But has it gone too far? Are Arsenal every bit as kind of turgid and awful as they're being portrayed?
It has gone too far, because ultimately they found a way to expose the opposition. And ultimately, me and Damien have said this for so long. Like, there's a generation of defenders who can't defend corners into the box, crosses into the box. And I think I've got a lot of Arsenal fans who are season ticket holder go over there, and they're desperate to win, this title and the Champions League. But even they say, "Oh, we're a hard watch.
Right, okay.
We are a hard watch," like that. So I get it, and Damo will come in with this on no doubt. Is that the frustration attached to that is that it's not as if they only have those type of players. They have unbelievably good creative players, but it just feels to me, and I said it to you, Joe, at the beginning of the season when everyone was saying Liverpool are going to walk it. I said, no, I think Arsenal will win the league. But my big worry was that Arteta would have too much control on his team, that he just wants to manage every little scenario, where it's not a case of him ever saying, go out there and express yourself. Now, it's the complete opposite side of the spectrum from Wenger in terms of, all the bleating used to come from Wenger in terms of long throws. He reckoned there should have been kick-ins and not throw-ins, and set pieces and physicality. And now they've gone full circle. But I'd argue this, and I have done so often, that Arteta isn't like Wenger, having played with him so long. He isn't like Guardiola, having learned his coaching trade under him. He's more like David Moyes. He's functional. He just is. No matter how many players, technical players that Arsenal may well sign and get in, and everyone thinks he should play. When the big games come around, those technical players will not be in the Arsenal team.
Yeah. And do you see that as a lack of courage? Because that's how Arteta is talked about. This guy lacks the stones, lacks courage.
No, I think he's just identified that this is the way to win Premier League. This is why they are. All this type of stuff when ex-managers saying there should be an asterisk next, it's just complete and utter nonsense. It's just for them trying to make headlines. They've formulated a way of playing that has exposed the rest of the Premier League, and I think could indeed expose the teams in the Champions League in terms of set pieces. It's just whether or not Arsenal can compete on the pitch when those teams dominate the ball.
But you know, Joe, everything Gary just said there, right? That Arsenal found a way, right? Leicester found a way in 2016, right?
Yeah.
Because they were obviously should never have been anywhere near the top echelons of the Premier League. But they found a way to narrow the gap to the big boys, and they ended up winning a league. The biggest gripe, and I've thought about this a lot, as to why everyone dislikes Arsenal so much, because we shouldn't, because, you know, they're entitled to do what they want to do. That is a £1 billion squad, and it is behaving like Leicester in 2016, okay? That team should be, especially with the state of the Premier League this season, with the teams like Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea, all the big guns are struggling, right? That Arsenal team should be pretty close to mathematically winning this league now. I mean, in terms of they should have probably close to 75, 76 points. And we should be thinking, oh, what's the game they're going to win it at? The very fact that they've left it in doubt is why what I'm thinking, you guys have just sandbagged, basically. You know, you have the best team available, you know. And I was thinking of like a good analogy there, Joe. Who are the most hated people in golf, Joe? Sandbaggers, right?
The lads who take an iron off a tee, those guys.
You know the guy who comfortably can play off a 10, but rocks up with 17 shots and then celebrates in the clubhouse afterwards because he's won the tournament.
Are you thinking of anyone in particular?
Well, we have a friend, I won't name him for legal reasons, and he does that a lot, right? And everybody just looks at him and they've got no shame. They'll walk around the clubhouse with a trophy and you're like, oh man, you're an absolute sandbagger, and nobody appreciates what you did because you've just, you've massaged the situation to suit you. And I think that's why everybody is frustrated with this Arsenal team. It should be, it can be, it has to be a swashbuckling team, and it's not. They're choosing to go down the route of time wasting. They're choosing to go down the route of set plays. They will not cut their top players free. Bukayo Saka has been struggling now for a long time because it's a system, whatever it may be. But Nani Madueke, when he came back from injury, was unbelievable. He was almost forced to put Eze in the team, right? And Eze has come good, but he's still gone back to solid players, and I just think that everyone's looking at Arsenal and going, you guys are just sandbagging.
Yeah.
You know what, Joe, on that, right, you got to let me come in with this, because Damo keeps saying about this £1 billion. How much did Liverpool spend? How much have United wasted? How much have Chelsea wasted? It's not, I know what you're saying, and so many of your points are valid, but the £1 billion spending is not one of them.
That is a team that's way better, Gary, than it's showing.
They can't create any wealth within their squad, because they had... When Arteta first took up the team at Arsenal, they had a squad full of 27, 28-year-olds. This is what Edu said as a sporting director. 27 and 28-year-olds who don't win. And the reason they didn't win, because they weren't good enough. And the reality then is that Arsenal couldn't sell any of those players. They couldn't generate any wealth. Liverpool have spent 400 million on a title-winning team, and they're not even going to finish in the Champions League places. So the money reference doesn't add up to me. All the other points you make certainly do in terms of the style of play.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, fair enough.
They had N'Golo Conte, they had Mahrez, they had some good players.
But they're fair enough. The money shot is probably a low blow. But what I'm saying is,
yes, I still wanted to get it in.
Don't be reasonable back to him. Get in there.
Nearly ended his laptop there. I could see him.
You can't start a fight and back down straight away. Come on.
I got what I wanted, Joe. You got to let me come back in.
Well, it's true. £1 billion isn't what it used to be fair.
No, but what I'm saying is they're way more talented than that team. That squad is way more talented than what they're letting on.
Okay. I would just like to apologise to our mutual friend Ivor that Damien abused his position on like a podcast to do that. No, it's staying in. It's staying in. You get a phone call later. Right, fellas. Enjoy Thursday. Enjoy Thursday, and hopefully we reconvene in the next few days.
We can't enjoy it. It's going to be hell watching.
Yeah. I know. God, if they concede an early goal, I just. Ugh. Well, I'm taking your confidence to the bank. Brilliant chat to you both. Thanks so much. Great analysis.
Thanks.
Damien Delaney, Gareth Breen. Cheers, fellas.